If I Should Die by Donevy Westphal. Available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other retailers.
You're kidding. That blonde hair and blue eyes sure had me fooled. Tom, my brother, has black hair and brown eyes. Isn't he a stepbrother? Aye, Guy, his brother slid into the seat across from him. Need a ride home? Wouldn't turn it down and going my way? Will be if I give you a ride. Man, that thing stinks, woman. His brother squashed a cigarette out in the ashtray. Well, I guess I gotta get back to work anyhow. She stuck her tongue out at her husband before leaving. That conversation had remained in his mind for years. He'd never thought of his parents like that before. Julius smirked at the thought of when he did try smoking sometime after that. He was right. He couldn't keep it from his father, but it didn't turn out the way he'd expected. In hindsight, there had been other times when his brother's wife instigated like that. It always caused friction in some way. The conflict finally got to him. He wasn't quite 18 when he signed up for the military, but he had to get away. Letters from family had come regularly at first, but after boot camp, they came less often. He still received a package each year on birthdays and holidays, and after his time was up, he chose to disappear. When he met and married Junko, his sister-in-law's words haunted him with what-ifs. He'd never thought his parents were prejudiced, but what if? 14 years I've wasted, 14 years lost. Maybe not wasted, but lost. 14 years. All because of a little snit who was playing games. Thanks, he said as the young waitress picked up his tray. He backed out and then pulled in to overnight his next roll of film, then set off to turn in his evidence bags to another agent. Chapter 16. Sunday, June 14th. The grass sparkled with light dew that glorious June morning. Julius followed the McDonald car into the parking lot in front of the small white country church building. He crawled out of his car and joined the three companions. Nice spot, not quite in town, close but not far. Julius pursed his lips and observed the building and its surroundings. We like it here, Michael said. And what a fresh morning, Ruth took a deep breath. They turned and walked up the steps. Thanks, Julius said as Michael held open the door. Once inside, it became clear that this structure was a remodeled country schoolhouse. Bits and pieces of memory sifted through Julius as he remembered the similar one-room schoolhouse of his past where his education had begun. Hello there, a short, round man of middle age and a woman of similar age stepped up to greet him in the foyer. Michael stepped forward. Albert, this is our house guest, Julius Armstrong. Julius, this is Mr. Albert Hyde and his wife, Wilma. He introduced the couple. Mr. Hyde extended his hand. So where are you from, Mr. Armstrong, and what brings you here? I'm from out east, Julius shook hands with the couple. I'm a freelance writer. Freelance, huh? You gonna be here long? Only a couple of weeks, Julius watched as others began to arrive. The Hydes live just a couple miles east of here. Their son-in-law here farms with them. Michael indicated a newly arrived young couple. Michael, come help with these screens, Ruth called from the front of the building. I guess we'll go open the windows, okay, Dora? Michael asked one of the little girls who came in. Her pigtails bobbed and he smiled. He took her hand and they went to help Ruth. As they slid screens in the opened windows, fresh morning air filled the building. A tall, serious young man in a plain navy blue suit shook Julius's hand. I'm Brother Paul Wilson. It's good to meet friends of the McDonalds. You say you're here for a short time? Yes, just a short time. Are you the preacher here? My wife Maria and I are here for the summer, the thin, sandy-haired man indicated a tiny, dark-haired woman with two children that joined him. Pleased to meet you. Are these your children? He smiled, remembering why he did not like these encounters. Yes, we have two children, Hannah and Daniel. Maria's words stumbled out with a charming accent. We would like to have maybe four, like Mr. and Mrs. McDonald. Her face became rosy in embarrassment. Do you have a family, Mr. Armstrong? I'm here alone, ma'am. How long will you be here? At least through August. This will be our second summer to work here. She paused before finishing. Paul has completed his schooling and we're looking for a permanent congregation. After a few moments of meet and greet, everyone found their places. Ruth took the smaller children and Michael led the older ones to their Bible classes. The adults stayed in the auditorium. Ask for the old paths, Brother Wilson read a verse 1 of Jeremiah chapter 6. Julius thought of grand cathedrals, magnificent monuments in the countries he had been in, and the sights he had witnessed during his life. How many beautiful shrines, how many churches were more interested in tributes for themselves and getting numbers into their buildings rather than getting people into heaven. He sighed and opened the Pew Bible and followed along. Julius observed the small, simple congregation as the people of varied ages settled into their pews. The light from the east windows highlighted the faces of each person. From older parents and grandparents to younger parents and children, there was a quiet and respectful aura as the small children sat tucked into their parents' arms. Albert Hyde favored his left leg as he stumped to the front of the auditorium. The first song this morning, Saints Lift Your Voices, song number 7, please. Pages whispered while everyone found the correct song. Like the calm before the storm, there seemed to be gathering strength. Albert raised his hand and, with a downward beat, began. There is none like him. Julius closed his eyes and joined in as the simple melody washed over him. Not any man-made artificial accompaniment could ever equal the beauty of God-made human voice raised in praise toward the Creator. His spirit soared as the simple songs were raised heavenward. We need to be strengthened with all power according to the might of His glory. We need to give thanks to the Father, who made us meet to be partakers in the inheritance of the saints of light, and who delivered us out of the power of darkness and translated us into the kingdom of His Son, of His love. Brother Wilson quoted as he brought his lesson to a close. At the end of the lesson, Julius stood beside Michael as they sang, will you come with your poor broken heart? As the final amen, Julius stepped into the aisle after Ruth and Mrs. McDonald passed. They made slow progress toward the exit as they stopped to talk. Nearing the back pews, Julius noticed a middle-aged woman with dyed red hair and penciled-on eyebrows stop and whispered to a boy on the bench who had come in after service began. His torn blue jeans and holey tennis shoes looked out of place. Ruth, the woman beckoned to her. Thank you, Ethel. Ruth sat beside the boy. How's your mom, Billy? She's sick in bed, Miss Ruth. His blue-gray eyes were huge in his thin, dirt-smeared face. And can't take care of Lolly and the baby. I don't know what to do. He stopped and wiped his face with a dirty sleeve. She can't get up, I'm afraid. Billy began to sob. His skinny body shook with spasms. Ruth wrapped her arms around him as if to hold him together. There now, she said. She's so sick, and Dad's been away for days, Miss Ruth. He sniffled and wiped his face on his sleeve again. I need to drop some things off at the potluck on the way to see about your mama. We'll throw your bike in the trunk. You ride with us, okay? Here, Julius handed Ruth his clean handkerchief. She dabbed at Billy's face and gave Billy the hanky. Miss Ruth, he blew his nose. There was only a slight tremor in his voice. Are you an angel of the Lord? He peered into her face. No, just a servant, she smiled at his innocent question. If you're a servant, them angels must be something. This time he used the shirt sleeve and the handkerchief. Ruth's face flamed bright red. I'm sure they are, Billy. Everyone has gone on to set up the potluck, Ruth. Michael came in from the foyer. Good. We're ready to leave, too. You and Mrs. M run on. If Julius doesn't mind, Billy and I can ride with him. It works for me, Julius shrugged. All right, Ruth, Michael said. I just need to grab my Bible. Ruth surveyed the auditorium, my purse, and a bulletin. She ushered Billy out the door. He sat along the country road behind the scraggly trees and the few bushes that gave him cover. His eyes narrowed. He leaned closer to the windshield as the activity in front of the church increased. Soon, his emotions ran riot and his pulse quickened. She should appear. They should be leaving any time now. What is taking so long? He scowled and leaned in closer yet. Where is she?